Today we're just going to do a huge overview of SS4, hopefully from when your folks get their project all the way into planned production. Megan's going to try to hit the main points from a manager's perspective, but if you have any questions, please just ask her. I am going to ask Wayne to come up and say a few words before we get started. Quick. Okay, well, Mike's going to come on up.
We're testing out Jen to see how well she can dance.
Yeah. So far, so good. All right, well, thanks, Jen, Megan, for having us down. Just want to say thanks for coming down to learn about the newest, greatest thing. I'm not going to be up here long because the chief engineer has to be at a meeting next door, so I'm not going to keep him here long. And also, let's face it, this might not be above my pay grade, but it is above my education level. So I might not be well versed in SS4 and what it does. But I can tell you this, times are changing at MDT. So are the expectations of the public. People now want to know not only how we choose and build projects or how we do that and develop them, they want to know how it's designed. And they're going to want to see how things are done. Those expectations rose along with their gas tax about a year ago. I think those of you who heard me speak the previous 5 years, when it became obvious we were going to have to do something about our revenue stream, I said, well, that's a double-edged sword. We will probably get the money. It won't be fun getting it, and the public is actually going to want to know what we do now. And here we are. You're a part of that, and we need your help. So I'm looking forward to seeing how some of this rolls out and how it makes a difference, not only for you, but the contracting community and the public, while the chief engineer and the folks that have to do the public meetings try and educate them as to what they're getting for their money. So I just wanted to say that. We don't always like change. It's happening whether we want to or not, and I'm excited to see how this goes. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate it. Thanks for making time for us, too. All right. Have Wayne come on up. It's your hard like double book. I'm sorry.
No
Thank you very much for making time for us.
No, it's all good. And I want to reiterate some of what the director said. First and foremost, I know we're all busy, and I know your staff are overwhelmed. With 18 ER projects plus our normal workload, I know that it's crazy right now, and I'm seeing the overtime. I get it. But to me, this is one of the most important things we're doing right now. And Damien, I know you're in the era, but how many of you guys actually design jobs on paper? Damien, I know you did. You know, actually, when I started at MDT, I started down at MDT MSU Design Unit back in 1993, and we actually designed projects on paper. And I remember my boss coming in one day and saying, hey, by the way, we're going to change the typical section. Took me a week with an electric eraser to go in and erase all the cross sections. Where we're going in the future is light years beyond where I started. And I think it's a huge, huge improvement for our workload and our efficiency. The other thing I love about this thing is that after MDT MSU, when I came on full-time at MDT, the first place I went was to construction. And right to the end of my era in construction, they started coming out and talking about data collectors. Anybody around when they started passing out the data collectors? Yes, Damien. God, I think you and I are the old ones in the group.
For a while, I understand.
So, and I remember when they started sending those out and talking to us about it, the whole auspice behind those was better design because our survey came in electronically, and then ultimately that electronic data would go back out to the field, and we wouldn't have to rewrite all those notes, recreate the entire project in engineering asks. That was 1998. Fast forward 20 years, and we're still not there. We're still struggling getting our design out to the field. They're still having to recreate that project in engineering apps. Now, we're rolling out TVC. That's a huge improvement for them, but it's not nearly as good as what this is going to be able to do for the field. The other thing I love about this is, how many of you guys have done public meetings? Exactly. Have you stood up in front of a crowd and tried to show them plan and profile sheet and looked at their eyes glaze over as you're showing them these black and white sheets with a bunch of lines on them, they don't get it, they don't understand it, and that's not their fault. They're not engineers, they don't understand our design details. When we can roll out with a visual like this, or a model, and show them a video of what that road's gonna look like, that's huge. It's a huge benefit, and it sets us up for success. A lot of our plans, they don't understand them, and a lot of times we've gotten miscommunication with the public. They don't understand how close to their house the roadway's gonna be, what it's gonna take out with our project, and we end up setting ourselves up for failure a lot of times. To be able to roll out some of this and more of that, it's gonna be a huge benefit to us, and I think it's gonna make you guys' lives easier, going to public meetings, dealing with, angry landowners, you name it. I think it's gonna be a huge benefit. One of the major bills we had at this last session was Senate Bill 182, and it was all about public involvement and communicating with the public. To me, this is a huge leap forward in providing that better communication with the public, so that we can show them exactly what our plans are gonna do and what it's gonna look like. Because they don't get that black and white, two-dimensional, bunch of lines on a piece of paper. This is a huge step in the right direction. So I know everybody's busy, I know we're struggling to find time to get our day-to-day work done, but I really need to ask that you guys invest time, work with your staff, get them on board, let's get this, institutionalized within the agency sooner rather than later. And I know you've got some great resources here to help you with that. We're also looking at bringing in some other resources to help. We know this is a heavy lift, and we're gonna try to make it as easy and as simple as we can. But I really need you guys to help spearhead this effort and bring everybody else along with you if you can. So with that, I'm not gonna take up any more of your time, because I know these two have a ton of great information to give you, and they're way smarter than I am. So I'm gonna turn it back over to them unless anybody's got any questions. I love all those questions. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Dwayne, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you both for taking time out of your other meeting you're supposed to be at, I appreciate it. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Megan now, but I wanna announce that I do have a couple of power users in the room, Aaron Mason, Mike Dagenstein. They are just absolutely huge, I can't say enough good things about them. They are rock stars on my SS4 development team. This project that you're looking at here is Mike's, and he did use this at a public involvement meeting. So if you have questions about how he produced this, or any reaction that he had from the public, I'm sure he'd answer any questions that you have. So with that, I will turn it over to Megan, and you're away, buddy.
Yay, thank you so much. Most of you guys have not had to sit through talking to me or listening to me talk for 2 days, so it's your turn now. I'm sorry. First, I'm gonna attempt to learn how to shut this thing down. Start there. There we go. All right. First thing I've got is a fairly short PowerPoint, believe it or not. I promise it's short. And I'm actually going to tell you what I'm going to do. We've got 5 topics. First one I'm going to go over is there have been some changes to our plan sheets. I hit those briefly. File structure. Big changes in our file structuring based on the inclusion of a 3D model now. We're going to go through both the existing and the proposed. There's 2 different sets now that road design oversees, as opposed to us only having our proposed design files. File referencing, another really big deal. Other disciplines are going to be referencing different files. We need to have different files in our design files, in our sheet files. So I've got them split into survey files. Our road design strip map is going to change quite a bit. And then the 3D modeling files, which are an animal all of their own. Plans production. This is where I'll get slightly more in depth on the plan and profile sheets and our working cross sections. Because again, things are going to change. Things are going to be in different files. Different things are going to be referenced. And then I will go through, hopefully, briefly an example project, just the main pieces, and hopefully I'll get a little further than I did this morning. sheet file changes. You're all aware that MDT's made the switch to a true type font. We're completely getting rid of all of the old microstation fonts, the standard, slanted, I can't remember the rest of them, and we're not using Arial or Times New Roman anymore. We've implemented an engineering font, that's the name of it, that Microsoft wrote let me see if I get this right. Microsoft wrote for the Department of Transportation in Florida, and then Bentley took it over, and now it's theirs. So we didn't take anything from the Florida DOT. But that gives us kind of a curve. Our current plans need to be updated. I believe our checkers gave us a drop dead date of anything that came to them by June 1st, was what they said. Anyway, the deadline has passed. So everybody who's still got projects that have not made it into the checker needs to be making the changes. JJ wrote us a macro. It changes pretty much everything. That being said, it does not change your horizontal vertical annotation. That has to be redone because of some additional changes. But it will change everything in your text files, or every text in your files. All you have to do is open each file, run the macro, and it automatically does. That includes border files, or border file sheet, title blocks, etc. Now, the title block itself, yes. It's been a long day, I'm sorry. We, as a team, and partially as part of the model review sim team, made the decision to take the combination scale factor out of all of our title blocks. So none of the sheet title blocks will show the CSF anymore. It's been completely removed. The other thing about those title blocks is JJ went in and he replaced all those data fields that we're used to seeing. The really annoying things you have to click and then type and then hit enter, and he's replaced them all with standard text, which doesn't really change anything for us, except for he also rewrote the macro. So the macro that fills out your title blocks now puts text in. So if somebody puts those data fields in and runs the macro, it's going to put text over the top of blank data fields. So they can put them in if they want. It just, the macro no longer recognizes those data fields. There's the macro updated. The title sheet itself, the first page of the website does still actually use data fields. Macro still recognizes data fields. The designer title block also still recognizes data fields. That's a separate macro. JJ hasn't touched that one. Our sheet borders are in flux right now, so we're not making any changes until we know exactly how the final is going to look. Now the control traverse control diagram, that's where construction has decided that they would like to see the combination scale factor. They said that's the only place to put it. They don't care if it's anywhere else. Makes planning happier. Planning doesn't like it on each file, on each sheet, because of the possibility of not getting everyone updated. Yes?
Sorry, me. So all these changes on this sheet so far, they're not necessarily SS4 changes. They're just all plan sheet changes. Is that true?
Yes.
No matter the.
This is stuff we've done within the last 6 months.
Okay, thanks.
So yes. And that being said, everything on this only applies to enhanced. Any of you guys with legacy projects, none of this needs to be done. None of these changes have changed in that set of CAD standards files. So don't worry about going back to those. The last fairly major change we made is to the inset map on the title block, or the title sheet. I hated that shape because I had to break it and redraw it every time I had to, because in case you're wondering, that thing does not loop back to the Glendive district. So we put in a leader. This is what the enhanced title block looks like. I'm ecstatic. I hope you all are too. That pretty much rounds out the CAD memos you've seen about plan sheet changes. P.S. I hope you guys are reading those, because I guarantee if you ask me about them, I'll laugh at you. If you ask me something that's in one of them. Moving on. File structure. The existing design files. We have new ones. We're not going to be relying on the DI map, the photogrammetry map. We'll have a terrain file. This is a three-dimensional surface created from survey tins. That basically sums that up. Second, we're going to have what we're calling an existing feature file. This is where this gets a little different. What the existing feature file is the survey photogrammetry line work. We take it and copy it into our own file, and we do what we need to do visually to make it work for our cross sections and for our plans production. Survey is not to the point in their 3D development yet where they can give us the file in the format that we need it. So we'll be taking all of their work and putting it into one single file of our own. So we'll no longer be referencing 5 DI maps and a photogrammetry map, or even one DI map. What we're going to be using is this existing features file. Third existing file, design file, is utilities mapping file. You're going to see this on the proposed and on the existing list. What it is a file to store modeled utilities. And by modeled utilities, I mean things that we can physically locate. We're talking culverts, storm, sanitary. We're not talking fiber, power, gas, unless you have a really good survey. It's for the things that you can physically locate, see, define. All of the other line work we're used to seeing, the gas lines, power lines, those will be in the existing features file. Got ahead of myself again. What I just said.
I have a question on that, sorry.
Yep.
So, do we know who's going to own and manage each of these files then?
So who's going to own and manage them? The designer is. These files, until such time where we've gotten survey up and running, that's us.
So that's an interim.
That is the, yes.
Okay.
I would not say it's a short-term interim thing, just because there's some bumps in getting survey caught up with us. We got way ahead.
Okay.
Aaron?
You know what happens if the interim fix works too well?
Yes, I know.
Aaron knows why I'm asking.
Believe me, I will be happy to shove this back in Bryce's court as soon as I can. Bryce is over here smirking, going, yeah, right. All right, so yes, interim solution. Both of them, the existing terrain and the existing features should, please don't bring this back to me, should be in survey or photogrammetry's court. It's their data. I don't want the legal responsibility that can go with it if I screw it up. Now the proposed files, these are all going to stay with us. First, we've got an alignment file. With 3D, Bentley's best practice is for you to have your horizontal, vertical design separate. It's not in with the model itself. Aaron pointed out this morning, these files that I'm going to list now, you're likely to have more than one. We're going to have likely multiple alignment files, multiple corridor files, those two, multiple proposed terrains. That being said, the designers, and you guys as project managers need to make sure that on DMS, they're labeling. We need the descriptions in there. Because if you've got 6 corridor files, and say hydraulics is looking for where the bridge is, they're looking for maybe your bridge end. If you don't have anything on there, they don't know. Maybe right away is looking for a specific portion of your main line. They can't guess based on corridor 1, 2, 3, 4. So keep that in mind. We've got to, I'm going to say this so many times, we've got to communicate better between the disciplines. And I'm just as guilty of it as anybody else. All right. The alignments, the civil alignments, you can physically see, touch, manipulate your alignment. The profile, you can manipulate, but you can't actually really see it. It exists in what I like to call an alternate dimension, where it's not actually static. So this file can't be used for plans production. Because at this time, Bentley has not given us a way to statically show the profile. That will come into play when we get to the plans production part of it. Just know that the only way you're going to get your designers to give you a profile out of this is if they take a screenshot and send it to you. Next file is the corridor file. This is going to generally be multiple files unless you have a really short project. It's the 3-dimensional model. It's your road surface, your cut and fill, any of your sub-excavation, the bridge end grading that I alluded to, riprap, anything that we're physically making in 3 dimensions. So it's what we all try to visualize in our mind when we're looking at the 2D plans. Some of us are better at it than others. That's what we're going to be putting in these models. Super elevation file. Instead of a .sup text file like we're used to with criteria, super elevations are created in a DGN. They're a graphic element, manipulatable, dynamic, and again, within the DGN. There's no calculating, re-importing, taking it out, hand manipulating it, put it back in. It is what it is within the design file. There's no extraneous data files. All right, next, proposed terrain model. This one we haven't started utilizing too much. Yes, I'm looking at you, Aaron. This is what we're hoping to be able to get back to construction. You can take the line work from your models and you can create surfaces. You can export them as tins. So it's possible to give construction proposed tins, proposed subgrades based on your model. The nice thing about these proposed is they're based on the line work from those corridors from the models. So since the models are dynamic, you change the model, the surface is going to change too. You don't have to go recreate it. There's a link across files that really cuts down on the rework, importation, exportation. And like I said, the utilities mapping file, here it is again. Same thing, proposed modeled utilities. Culverts, storm, sanitary, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, this is what, yes.
Did you say the RDUMA is both proposed, accurately locatable, and able to be modeled as well as the existing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We do have both. Yes, Damien.
So how do you know if, oftentimes we have, I don't want to call it 2D, it's really just surface. We have SU-1 survey. We kind of know where the utilities are. They're below ground at this point. We know how deep they are. Are we going to do SU-2 on everything? Or how do you guarantee that your model has the utilities
that level, then don't model it. If you don't need it to that level, don't model it.
We still get the 2D one call, surface spray paint mark,
Yep.
put in the other file. and
Yep.
the whole-
That's the existing features
Okay.
file.
We'll still have a file,
Yep, the survey will still pick that up.
okay.
Yep. Mostly I separated them into, in my mind, this is the hard and this is the more soft, flexible.
I have a little bit to add to that. RJ is in on the mix on this. We have a, kind of an experimental pilot project on Custer where we're doing ground penetrating radar and PM induction, where we're able to locate to a lot better accuracy as far as depth goes. So we'll have to have some discussions as to where that information is not actually physically located, but we're within a few inches depth-wise where that should go.
Yes, we will have to have that discussion. So that'll be above my pay grade.
But if you wanted to model it, that would be the file you put
At the pre-con conference, there was that GIS utility presentation, and he showed the different classes, the A, B, and C, and if you got class B, you got, it's only so good. The gas line, and it's class C by some houses, it's different than class A, but fiber, so it's judgment call there, but I've had them, we usually just drape them on the ground, but I've had them where they'll go out and do the subsurface, give me tone depths, and I'll actually do that, 3D line stream they gave me, we'll probably won't hit that.
We can connect the dots if we have information that's deemed accurate enough.
We are advancing, just to put it out there a little bit, we are advancing the utility location data repository and a permitting system right now. We're working on getting a vendor in place for that, so the appropriate location for that data to be housed will also be in that utility location data repository. So how the two systems talk with each other remains to be seen, and we'll have lots of good conversation about that.
All right.
Jen happens to be the project manager helping us on that, so.
Which one?
Far back, Jen.
That one. Okay, Jen Nelson.
So before anybody thinks about actually modeling any utilities, should that be a discussion with utilities? Because just because you back it here and here
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's a straight line between 2 points. So
Exactly.
So that's a discussion that needs to be had with utilities before you actually model it. That,
For sure.
okay.
I would say that if you have from manhole to manhole, if your pipe's not a straight line between those two, you've got bigger problems than whether or not.
Well, I'm thinking of phone lines because I've hit a 300 pair phone line that was supposed to be 8 feet
Yeah.
deep here, and the phone pedestal's against that wall. And so,
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why we used utility mapping file as the extension on it, but it could be just called the culvert mapping file.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
If
it
you
could
wanted
be.
to
This
put it in
Okay.
was kind of arbitrarily decided.
Okay.
That was the
okay.
other thing, and this is, maybe we're splitting hairs a little bit, the culverts aren't utilities.
This is true.
So we need to be careful with how I'm not saying we can't put it in there, but everybody has to realize that my section is not going to be dealing with those culverts. The other sanitary water, fiber, all the other things that we're able to accurately
Right, the
model
culverts are hydraulic
existing
or
and
road.
proposed, yeah.
Yeah. And in my mind, I assume that, so we will make sure that that is known. I think most of us naturally understand it, even if we don't. Like, I'm gonna continue to call it a utility for my tenure here, but I also know I don't call you, I call Dave. Thank you.
That I use Jimmy directly from utilities. Okay.
All right, now we're into the file referencing. This is different, again, because we've got 3D models now. But what we're using, plans production, survey, our road map, our strip map, they're all a little different. You're gonna be seeing different things in different files. This is what you guys are holding, so I'm not even gonna attempt to read off it because I can't see it from here. So for survey, these are our existing.
We have the existing terrain model. NA, there is nothing in our design scheme that should be referenced in it. There's no reason for anything to be in for visualization. It is a standalone file. Think of it as your tin, your graphical tin. This is one you should create, and it should go to DMS, and it should be a read-only file from then on, just like we do with photogrammetry, like we do with survey. There's no reason for anything to be in that. You shouldn't be messing around in. Second one, the existing features file. Same thing, kind of. These are the 4 types of files where you're going to merge in the line work from the other disciplines. So photogrammetries, our district surveys, environmental wetlands type stuff, and then, I think I missed one. Utilities, if we've got just a planimetric SU where we're not getting, it's not in there. The other thing that will get merged or copied into here are existing right-of-way and eventually proposed construction permits, because this is the file we use to cut our cross-section ancillary features. Otherwise, there is no reason for us to have right-of-way in there. We need it in there to cut those steps. And, yeah.
So everything on here is, this is still a shape file, right? Not a shape file?
It's a DGN.
This is just a 2D file?
It starts out as a 2D file.
Okay. So everything that you're listing there is draped, if it's...
It will be draped, yes.
Okay.
Right, when you create it, all of these 4 files will come into the plan view 2-dimensionally. We don't want the 3D data when we bring it into the existing feature file.
So what about pipes?
I don't drape pipes because I model them.
Okay, so is there something we potentially have to take out of survey or photogrammetry or whatever?
Yes.
Before we merge them?
Or just turn the level off.
Okay. There's some things that are going to be, sorry to derail you here a little bit.
Nope, you're fine. Ask away.
Anything that goes in this file is a draped feature. If it's not draped, it could have the other home that you're talking about.
Yeah, if it's not draped, if it's 3-dimensional, yes, it has the next one.
Okay.
And it'll take some, each file is a little different, each survey is a little different. Depends on what you're going to, the project specific, what you're going to take out, but generally, culverts.
Are these in, like, the naming conventions of this?
These ones?
Yeah, we see those things in the name of the file, we'll know what we're looking at, is that
Yep.
right? Okay.
If you go to the Create DGN in MicroStation, they're all listed there as well. These are JJ's choice, basically, is what they ended up being.
That brings up a really good point too, Damien, about the levels and merging, something that makes me really nervous because I've accidentally done it before. The levels you have on or off in those files before you merge them is what's going to come in. So if you have levels off and you merge and you didn't realize that you did that, you just lost all of that. So we just took ownership of a bunch of stuff that's not ours while leaving stuff out. So that's something that really needs to be emphasized. When you merge this stuff in, make sure all the levels you need are on.
I've started merging everything.
That's what I do too.
I don't drape everything, like I don't drape ground shots, but that way I know that I've got everything. But then you think, if I gotta pick up survey, did I get everything? Am I gonna have doubles now?
You can also start getting EFF files that are 50, 60, 70 megabytes. It
I
seems
didn't
like a
think
lot,
about
but
that.
with OpenRoads, bogs it down.
I guess the takeaway from that is use logic, and that will come with practice. Okay, where was I? There's that utilities mapping file again. So SU files, whoops, and then some things out of the survey. Now, this strip map. The RD map is not what we're used to it being. It's no longer going to be the repository for all of our language. The only thing that should be actually living in the road design file is the visualization of your plan and profile. No edge of pavement, no construction limits, et cetera, et cetera. Anything annotated. So on that note, if you have sidewalk details and you've got those annotated, that would be in there. Now, what we're going to do to facilitate the annotation is you're going to reference everything else in there. So, for annotation only, this is going to be a new, we're all used to opening the RD strip map and seeing everything. It's not going to work like that anymore. We'll start with the strip map. The existing feature file will be referenced in. The utilities modeling file, all of the corridor files, that's where the construction limits are. You'll reference in your geometrics just like you normally would. You'll reference in the right-of-way just like you normally would. And the hydraulics file. But none of this, the existing features, the corridor, none of that's going to actually live in there. Just that alignment and profile. Excuse me. Now the 3D modeling, we've got everything split out into pieces based on Bentley's best practice. There are four different file types. Watch me be wrong. 4 different file types that are utilized in our 3D modeling. First one is the alignment file. That's the one you start with. That's what everything else is based on. Without an alignment and profile, you really can't do much else. Second one is the corridor. Without the corridor, you don't really have anything other than the existing ground. So in the alignment file, you need your existing terrain. Just like when we use criteria and we create that existing profile right off the bat. This is your existing profile, this is your existing cross-section. It all resides in the ETR. Static or dynamically, it's there. You don't ever have to cut something static to see your existing, as long as that terrain is referenced in. Existing features file. Usually when we're trying to sketch an alignment, it's kind of nice to be able to see what we're working with. So you would generally want the feature file in there to see edge of pavement, PTW, etc. Utilities modeling file. Again, if you've got existing culverts, manholes, etc., it's nice to know what you're trying to dodge. On the corridor file, you need basically the same thing. Your existing terrain model, corridor has to be able to seek something. Just like our cross-sections currently seek the existing cross-section, the corridor seeks the terrain. Existing feature file, sometimes we tie our corridors to, say, the bottom of a ditch. You want your catch, you have to have the length to do it. This allows you to do it without having to hand manipulate cross-sections. Utilities model. Again, if you're modeling a pipe or if you've got a pipe model, then you need to work slopes around it, or you need to know where it's coming out, or if there's enough cover, that's the only way you're going to be able to see it if it's referenced in there. And, of course, your alignment file. Like I said before, without an alignment, you don't have a corridor. And finally, the super elevation file. This is what you apply to the corridor to cause it to super elevate.
On that corridor file, you said that you probably have multiples of those unless you have a really short job. How short and how many are we looking at?
It depends on the job. What we've come up with for best practice is you don't want a corridor probably any longer than a mile. So how long, Mike, how many do you have?
I don't know if I'm the best example.
And it's, generally you're going to have main line broke into that category where it's maybe a mile, and it's about processing power too. I mean, you can just bog the system down by having too much all at once. And then all those approaches you might have 10 approaches in a separate corridor file, and then you might start breaking those out depending on how complicated or how large they get. And the designer may hit that threshold where it's like, oh no, this is really starting to manipulate flow, and I need to make it into a more bite-sized piece for the just processing power in general. And you run into troubles where you just sort of lose the logic tree, where you're like, I can't track what's looking at what anymore, and I need to make this a little more manageable for, simplify for people. So you say these beginning approaches I'll put in one corridor file, and they're associated to this mainline portion.
Detours generally get put in a separate file. Side roads, one thing I just actually thought of, any corridors in the same file utilize the same levels. So if you have your detour and your main line in the same file, you can't turn one of them off. There's no way to only see one of them visually. So if you have them in separate files, then you can turn them off.
A couple of questions.
Okay.
So when you have, can you go back one slide, please? So under the corridor file, all those they're not necessarily referenced together, but they're related and working at the same time. Is that right, or am I?
Those should all be referenced into the file.
So they're all referenced similar to how the other things are referenced. Okay.
They do all work together. They can be interrelated, but they should all be referenced separately until we come up with something different for nesting.
Okay. And then the other question I had, because Aaron mentioned that computer can get bogged down with processing, and I assume that's gotten better with the new CAD machines, but it's still an issue.
It's not we've solved our hardware issue, but there's a lot of interconnectedness, and you can overcomplicate. I mean, you're doing some pretty hard functions in between these things, and you start super elevating spiral sections, and you have all this. It's trying to recalculate the math for me catching on some edge of pavement somewhere, and it just overwhelms everything because humans get in there and kind of make illogical illogical relationships between things.
You can lock it into a circular loop if you're not careful.
And that's part of it. Just keep it more manageable, But their best practice is keep your main line broken into segments of X, a mile long, and that it's plus or minus.
Right.
And if it's simple, you can maybe do 11 miles. 11 miles in one corridor, it works just fine.
And that's why he's not a very good example.
Yeah, we're not a good example.
Forgot about that when I asked. One thing that, when they're talking about processing power, once the general corridor is created, a lot of what we do is tweaking, which would be where we usually edit our cross sections. So every time you make a tweak, if you make a 25-foot tweak at the beginning of your project, it recalculates all 11 miles. And it will do that every time you make any kind of change.
You're like, I want to adjust the profile on this stupid farm field approach. It's not stupid, but you're like, well, I better process my main line and everything else in this file all at the same time and be running.
So just limited to the corridor length. If you had one every mile, then.
Yeah, it's limited to what's in the file.
Okay.
So Aaron's saying his approach, if he changes his mainline profile, not only will it recalculate the mainline profile, but any approaches that are also in that file will recalculate. So the more you get in there, the more complicated it can get.
So that's the biggest reason for limiting right now.
Yeah, it's no longer a software or a hardware problem.
There are certain things you can do, like turn off the rules temporarily, do a whole bunch of edits when it's just repetitive stuff, say, okay, you can calculate, take a minute, but it didn't take a minute between every single little thing you did.
Okay. So the other two 3D modeling files are the super elevation file, and there's that utilities modeling file again. The super elevation file has to have the alignment file in it. That's the only thing it needs in there. It's based completely on the alignment. It doesn't need to know what the corridor is. The corridor needs to know what it is. The only thing that goes in there is the alignment. It doesn't care about the existing ground, the existing features, nothing. Utilities file, it does need that existing ground. If you're looking at your proposed culverts or even your existing culverts, you can actually cause them to tie in to your existing ground. You have to have your existing ground to do it. Apparently that was the only one you needed. Now, for plan and profile sheets. This is where I was saying that we're not gonna get the same things in our strip map that we're used to seeing. So anybody that uses our plan and profile sheets, anybody that looks at them, you're getting different things from different, yeah, Damien?
I look at it.
Oh. I couldn't have it, I didn't finish the sentence. All right. So, starting at the top. First one, the road design strip map's still gonna be in there. We still have to have our annotations. Visualization with Kogo with the DNC manager. That will change with the next version of the software. Now forget I said that. The corridor file. I don't know when it's coming, it doesn't matter. Corridor file, this is where your break lines are gonna be. This is where you're getting your edge of pavement. This is where the construction lines will sit. This is where ditch bottoms, any kind of break lines we're used to seeing will show up in this file, and only in this file. You are not gonna be copying them out of this. They are part of the model. They're integrated into the model. They're not separate line work. Existing features file, just like we used to do with the DI map, same referencing scheme, all the break lines, those utility custom line styles we're used to seeing. This one, jury's still out. Some of us argue that we want to see proposed contours, some of us argue that we don't. My argument is that if I'm doing a bridge end, hydraulics generally gives me contours, and those go in the detail, generally.
We do for erosion plans.
Good point.
You use this file?
Good point. I haven't had to do those in a while.
I think it's good for proposed surfaces too.
It's hard to see on a really rural lawn because they're just so small.
Oh,
Because of the scale, you get both of them in there.
I just use it for, like, when I'll take my main line, make that a surface, and do my approach grading to my main line grading.
But not in my plan and profile sheet.
In the proposed terrain. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh. Never mind.
Don't get ahead of me. And then the utilities model. Each of these modeled utilities have a plan profile cross-section view, I guess you would say, associated with them. You can see them in all three views. So if you've modeled your culvert, your FETs, it will show a culvert with FETs in plan view. We don't have to hand draw in plan view in cross sections even anymore. It will cut those for us. Again, water, storm, sanitary, and the structure, hydraulics, culverts. The other plans production files that we're all very interested in is the working cross section. We didn't ever really have to have anything in our XSF file except the cross sections. You just ran them in there, they put them in there, and you moved on. OpenRoads cuts cross sections off the model. It's literally like slicing bread. So it doesn't do that across the reference. Your model's got to be referenced in order for it to be able to cut them. So the list is kind of long. First, the alignment, corridor alignment. Second, all of the corridors. You're not going to see road typical section, you're not going to see cut fill, you're not going to see sub-X, any of that without the corridors. The existing terrain model, that's what's going to cut those existing cross sections for you. They're not a separate entity anymore. Existing features. This is why we're talking about draping those utilities. This is where it will cut and put in the wetland, edge of water, overhead power, underground power features for us. That also is no longer a separate process. Utilities model, like I just said, it will also cut modeled utilities or modeled pipes, I guess is probably more accurate, in the cross section accurately. Which, by the way, does look a little strange because it cuts them accurately. So if you cut down the middle of a pipe, you have a gap at the end because there's actually nothing there. So it's going to take a little bit of rethinking to get used to the way it's doing it. And that's part and parcel to the software because it is accurate. That we can't just change to make it look like it always looked. That sums up the talking a lot portion of my presentation. Do we have questions that you guys didn't already ask me? And if you run out of questions, I will go into the example. That applies to you guys on the phone too. Do you have any questions for me? Or for Aaron, or for Mike? Feel free to put them on the spot.
Question on the bottom pipe, is that inner, outer, both?
Both. You can, when Sue is set up correctly, which is not yet completely correct, it gives you thickness, material.
Mannings and roughness coefficients, slope, grade, and treatments. And it's because of that, we call it the utilities file because there's one program, that subsurface utility program, that basically is the tool set for modeling all underground conduits. That's SUDA stuff. So, it's like, if you're connecting nodes together in that software, it treats it the same way as if we had two FETs with a pipe in between it, or something along those lines. It's like, hey, now instead of that, we're going to have some conduit with manholes on the end, and all of that tool set is all packaged up together in that SUDA. So basically, anytime we're using that SUDA, we're shoving everything in there. You don't pay a cost.
Which, that's where I get utilities probably.
And then, you could do the full pipe hydraulic network analysis on that.
The stuff we got out of the box from Bentley is pretty good. The RCB and CMP stuff, the smaller stuff is right on. There's some larger stuff we don't have, but we're requesting it from Bentley with this new RFP they're sending for their cells. Hydraulics is sending them for their cells.
And that's going to be manholes, inlets,
Pipes,
culverts,
yeah.
all of our end treatments.
So we're having them custom build the cells for MPD.
Yes.
We have the ability to custom make our own design, but
They're all editable. It's going to take somebody who's pretty specialized in it because it's not really like the 3D modeling we're used to. But someone could definitely go in there and edit one Bentley gave us, or even create their own.
We're hoping to have somebody in hydraulics presumably learn how to do that.
so I have one more question.
Ask away.
You said when you cut your cross sections, you bring in all these corridors, so do approaches show up anywhere close like they used to, or they come do little things?
The approaches show up very similar to what we see.
Okay.
They show up accurately though. So you're not going in and hand drawing it in. You've modeled that approach and it comes off your main line and it does exactly what it shows in the model. It'll show you your pavement, it'll show you your tie-in. They look fundamentally the same.
But it does it on that cross section, so if you have a skew,
It's gonna look weird.
it's gonna look goofy.
Yeah, that's the downside to accurate, or the upside.
But does it show like your main template and then your approach filling it in, or does it just show the?
It depends on what we want.
Okay.
We have it set up so we can do it either way. We can take off the end section, or we can show the ditch.
Okay.
That one still hasn't been argued out above my pay grade.
You can cut them however you want. Like on Bridger Canyon, there's a lot of skew pipes, so a lot of my sections had ellipses, right? Cut the pipe on skew. So what I do is I just cut another cross section right there on the pipe skew, so I had a realistic shape for the pipe and just put it in so it looked like it always looked. So we could cut it at the approach and cut one that's skewed to the approach, or you just cut one through the center of the approach and it looks exactly as it's.
Well, I've just seen other cross sections where there was some approach going on, a side road that turned, and you really couldn't tell. If there's just like one line that showed build this, and you couldn't tell why that one was different than the next one, other than it was wider and lumpy.
If you've got an approach that's cutting a cross section, the approach winds through it like an S curve, you're gonna get off the main line approach, end condition, the next part of the approach, end condition, and as many road sections as it crosses. So it's not gonna give you a straight line across.
And construction limits for any approach where construction limits get included, are there other construction limits to do with this?
They'll all show up together, yeah.
Made to be, okay.
Yep. They're all gonna be on the same level.
Okay.
But they could be in different files.
They could be in different files.
Shut them off if you want.
All right.
A lot of different files.
Sorry, we keep cutting out. We got people on the phone. Do they have any questions?
I asked, nobody's talking. You guys there? Anybody? Maybe they fell asleep.
I tried to call in from my office and then got back from a meeting and the online portion wasn't working, so that might be when it dropped off.
Well, they're still there. They're all still there. They're all still muted. Oh, Ben's unmuted, but.
This is Ben. I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, good. You're still alive. Good. All right, well, in that case, I'm going to run through the basics of a project. That's hopefully better than I did the first time. What was that?
I just told Bryce to look away.
Oh. All right, so the first thing you're going to notice is that this is not the startup menu that you guys are used to seeing. This will be the new one, which we intended to have rolled out before we started this. This right here, this Road 2018, I keep forgetting that you guys on the phone can't see this. This 2018 is our finalized enhanced workspace, let's say. It's the one where we finally got with Bentley and they showed us what we probably should have been doing before we kind of took off and tried to fly by ourselves with the first one. So there's nothing really intrinsically wrong with the enhanced workspace we have now. This one's better. It's not going to be a big change across. It's not like the enhanced versus legacy. You guys that don't model or any of, it's not going to change a thing. What it changes is the model itself. And as soon as we get a rollout date, Dustin will give us guidance on where you're going to be.
July 1.
Okay.
Coming in his memo.
Okay. So on July 1st, apparently I need to have a memo written by. It's going to say that at a certain milestone, I'm not even going to try and say it guess now because I'll be wrong. At a certain milestone, if you're after it, stay in road. If you're before it, you need to transition forward. Do I need to separate you three?
You're doing great.
Good heavens. Again, it's not going to affect, right away won't notice a difference, traffic's not going to notice a difference, hydraulics won't. It's going to be within the model itself. It's not, like I said, a big change. Same seat files, same units, just the model itself.
Would those same differences apply to traffic and safety 2018?
If they're modeling, yes. Oh, right, traffic and safety, yes. I'm sorry. Traffic safety, we're kind of calling you guys our sub-road design. So yes, that's gonna affect their modeling as well.
Does it matter, like with the old one, if road design's working in road 2018 and bridge is in road, there's no issues with that?
Bridge won't even notice.
Okay.
No, nobody who is not using our models, our templates, or actually actively creating models is gonna notice.
Okay.
That's all within road design. It's a change for us. So I'm gonna be using 2018 in this because I was thinking I could send you guys back to your desk and go, here, look, new, play with it. So the first thing you do when you start a new project is you go in and generally create all your files. Alignment, corridor, existing feature file, existing terrain, map file, super elevation file, cross-section file. You all know the whole litany of them. First, and go in and pull down view copies of all of the other discipline files. So if you have a bridge, hydraulics, survey, photogrammetry, I'm sure I've missed a couple, but any of those other map files, other data files, other design files. Once you've got those, you're going to create your existing terrain. That's the first thing they need. I realize I should have stole a new computer and brought it down here. And I want you guys to see something, you project manager, I want you guys to see something after I do this. So this is literally all there is to it. It's the same kind of importation. And this one I've corrected. And you've all heard Jen, JJ, myself, Aaron, Mike talk about needing accurate survey. You can see this looks good. Looks like it's supposed to. Now, the original, here's my original survey line work. And I'm not trying to lay blame on any survey crew. I'm just trying to prove a point. That's what came in. That's my center line. That's how that was processed and sent to me. It just so happened that I was far enough along in the project that I didn't even notice. I didn't.
You got it.
Hmm? You know, you got it. So, I mean, you don't even notice. Now so that's the survey. Now this is the 10. I mean, it's not gonna crash. I must have fixed it. So this is actually, whoops, the same thing. There's my edge of pavement center line. I don't know how you guys see that. I know where it is. The original. That's my bottom of bank. So that causes a really large blow in my terrain. And the only reason, like I said, I'm not trying to lay blame on the survey crew, but this is why we need to be checking these. This is I have a TIN and a DI map that are different. They have errors in different places. Because the TIN caught this blow, but it didn't catch the edge of pavement in the center line. So now I'm supposed to create a 3D model off of this, because it's not supposed to be me that's editing it.
This is one. Sometimes we gotta, merge 5 of them together in a different combination of merge and append. It's a nice thing too that there's a couple things that makes me think of. All that 3D line work came from survey. It's accurate to elevation and location. It comes in as 3D line work. We don't use that. We take their 2D line work and drape it on the tin.
Yeah, except for the terrain part.
Right. It is break lines in the terrain, but I just, like this culvert placement, the pavement markings are the detour pavement markings. So it's showing me the crown of the road moved 2.5 feet over, but there is no point shot out there in the travel lane. So it's, do we need to change our methodology? Should we be shooting points closer together, stuff like that?
Now I'm going to get off my soapbox. I made my point.
It seems like there could be some error introduced there that might not be easily caught.
Alright, so this is the existing feature file. And I'm not going to get real into this, but this is where, and I would get environmental, district survey. In this case, I'm grabbing the right-of-way map just to get certain pieces out of it. Pull it all in, and then you would go and merge it into the master. So then,
all the levels are on first.
Yeah. I'm in a hurry. I ran out of time last class, we're not going to be picky. So now what I've got is a two-dimensional strip map, planimetric, completely flat. But I've also got my terrain in here. This is where that ancillary features comes in. And this is what the designers are going to do for each of these features. So if I've got, there's my overhead power. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a feature definition to it. What that is a preset set of specifications for what it looks like. Plan, profile, AV, and in cross section. That's how that ancillary cell gets populated. It's pre-set up. This is what Bentley went through with us. We vetted it over and over again. We're happy with what it's doing. I'm going to just very quickly, I'm only going to do this once instead of making you guys watch this 30 times. I got the power overhead around it. All right, there it is. U is underground, X is overhead, not crossing. So it applied it. It's not anything that you guys will notice. But now that we've got it, this is where you get your ancillary feature to set on the existing ground. You're going to create a profile from the existing terrain. So I'm only doing this for the power, the overhead power that I grabbed. Ignore my quick happiness. Then if we go and we look here in the 3D model, apparently I already did it. Ahead of myself. There. That is everything draped on the terrain. So now any cross section that's cut, needs to actually have the correct line height. That's what that'll look like. And I can I said before, once you get these two done, put them on DMS, pull them down as view copies, do not mess with them unless for some reason you need to add something. If you get a pickup survey, when right-of-way gives you construction limits or construction permits, when final new acquisition gets defined, those are the kind of things that you'll put in here later. This isn't one that gets pulled down every day and messed with. Once you've got all of that, then you actually go into the design. Really? No, it's not. I promise. Oh, it is. I have two files open. All right, this is the alignment file. So I've got an alignment drawn here with civil geometry. Works the, that's not true. It looks the same as a drafted one, except for it's marked. All these labels that you're seeing, the bearing, distance, radius, start station, that can all be changed. And it will filter through to your profile, to your corridor, on down the ripple effect. Profile, same thing. Profile's got all of its, stop scrolling, pertinent data in here, curve length, profile, or not profile, K value, slope or grade. One thing about the civil alignments profiles, these two are incontrovertibly linked. Unlike GeoPack, where you have a plan and a profile that really have nothing in common as far as the GCK is concerned, these two only match to each other. So if I create another horizontal alignment, even if I copy it, this profile that I've got right here doesn't come with it, can't be matched to it. You have to create another one. When you export it to GeoPack, you lose that, but as long as it's in OpenRoads, they are a pair. Yes?
Can you disassociate them in terms of, like the interstate system? We never run our profile until today down the center line of each cell lane. We always run our profile on the inside edge of the median, and the cross sections are built off of that. So if you have one profile, if you don't have any grade separation, you have one profile, it's always running the median, no matter what the road's doing.
Right.
Does it have to be at the center line, or can you locate it wherever you want, as long as it doesn't?
This does not have to be at the center line. I designed the Van Buren and Orange Street roundabout.
Okay.
So the ramps are.
So they're tied together, but they're not necessarily coincident in center line of the roadway and center line of, or where the profile is.
No, they are. It's where your template origin is. So if I've got a ramp that's got the center line on the inside, outside shoulder, I've got a profile of that outside shoulder. When I run my corridor, my template origin sits at that shoulder. So it's got a piece to the left and a piece to the right that are dependent on that profile. You can put other profiles on either side of it and tie to it, but this particular horizontal location and this particular vertical stay together.
Okay, so you can have like one median center line that runs right down your center of your median, and then you can have one profile that is based off the inside edge of your pavement on either side, left and right.
You would need horizontal. You would need separate horizontals for that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not true. One horizontal. You can have multiple profiles for a horizontal, but they all are located the same in plan. So if I had, say we're in really early stages, I can create multiple profiles in this. They're all tied to the same alignment. If I want to move my alignment, make a separate alignment, say I'm offsetting 12 feet, I have to create another profile for that. It won't take it with it.
Okay.
It's easy though. center line, put it on wherever you want.
So in your interstate, you're asking, we have a median alignment that sort of dictates what is going on horizontally, but possibly, but it could deviate off from that. We can absolutely do that. I mean, the sky's the limit. We could add ditch alignments and profiles too. And you could have your cross sections running off of yet a different alignment that has nothing to do with any of those, just because you want to capture everything that's going on or something like that. I mean, there's no limitation to that whole.
Okay, this is one of those things like draw it off of here and it has to go left and right.
But this profile is what the 3D element of that horizontal is doing. These two are together. There's no taking them apart anymore. When she created this profile and activated it to that horizontal, it's not just some bunch of geometry that can be separated out from it. It is tied together, and they look at each other for defining.
But I can certainly take, maybe this is what you're asking, I can take and run that median alignment, and I can run a template, a separated template down it, but then I can run an alignment down the inside shoulder of, say, westbound and the inside shoulder eastbound, and I can tie that template to those as well, just separate pieces of the template. Your center line would still be down the median, but you can tie any pieces of the template to something else and build off of it.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing you would do after you've got this far is you're going to actually go back to the legacy process. You export it out to the GPK. You go into your road design file, your roadmap, and you visualize it. Same story, different day. On the modeling side, now what we're going to do is create the super elevations for this. We have our horizontal, we have our vertical. And what the super elevations look like, it gives you sections. And you can usually get away with a section that's, okay, unless it's 11 miles, as long as your project. So it doesn't have to necessarily be divided. Within the section, there are lanes, and these are similar to what we see in criteria. One thing to note, in OpenRoads, -2 is normal crown on both sides, for some reason. It's not like criteria where one is positive and one is negative, but it's different in the templates. I don't know what the designers were, or the programmers were thinking. But you get these lanes in, and then you tell it to calculate. We have, courtesy of our awesome EISS staff, we've got what are called SEP files. We've got our 2-lane open road, low-speed urban, the multi-lane interstate. We also have the no rotation ones. This is left over from the not offsetting the alignment 12 feet in the middle of the super. These ones rotate about center line all the way through. So that's what I'm going to pick for this. Design speed, and then divided, undivided. Oh, that's what it's supposed to be. So I'm going to get click happy again. Just assume I know what I'm doing. All right. So this should not be played with, but I wanted you guys to see it.
But it should be checked.
Should be checked.
Absolutely, it should be checked.
Should be checked.
I found,
Particularly since this does not appear to have the 5% super it's supposed to.
You have,
Nope, I've got a 2% super. Oh, wait, that's why. I only have one left edge. See? This is why you check it. And it gives you a graphic representation as well as the chart here. So just know that's there. And for the 30th time today, I don't know what I just did wrong.
I think we need to reiterate how careful they should be with this, and just to use, somebody should be doing QA on this, because I found a few glitchy things, like the transitions sometimes don't calculate through, and I'll have to go in and manually put in a point just at zero, or normal crown, and, non-standard spiral lengths. It uses a really, I went to Jim Dunbar, since he's the resident super expert, and he pulled out like a 1958 highway manual, and he showed me what it's using to calculate the non-standard, but it gives you these really long transition lengths. And we were just like trying to match existing, bridge end or something. But it's something that you'd never know if you just let this thing calculate for you, because it looks right, but it's just got these really long transition lengths.
See if I can get this to work. I'm only going to try this twice. So far today, I've not been batting 1,000.
In your defense, it's really hard to do this on somebody else's computer.
I did bring my UPS. I got smart.
With an old machine, too.
All right, I'm trying to cut me some slack, thank you. All right, let's try this again.
One screen. It's like the target.
All right. I can get it to work now. See, I would not be an engineer if I had to do it with quill and parchment paper. There we go. It's better. Now it's got both sides.
It's still dropping that normal crown off the end though. So if you had another section it was transitioned to, you might have to put that in there manually. So I think everybody's gonna have to learn.
Those are relative grade lines we're looking at up there.
Yeah. You're looking at normal crown is the combined line. Like I said, they're both -2, even though that seems really bizarre. And when they split, that's actually supering and come back together. Mike's right, it did not finish the line.
I always check those transition lengths, just double check them. Sometimes it gives you funky ones.
Not great with reverse curves or curves real tight to each other.
It's only as smart as it's programming. It's way easier to manipulate than our SUP file. So, not to waste any more time on that. Super elevation. This is what I consider the fun part of this, is the actual corridors. I've got 2 corridors here that I have not applied anything to. All they are is a link to the entire alignment that says I can do something with this. There's a 3D model possibility here. I'm going to take and I'm going to, with predetermined stations, somebody wanted to know last class how I knew where I was putting these.
Rich told you.
Right, I just pulled them out of somewhere. All right. So I'm using JJ and Bentley have created this default template library in our CAD share drive. They can either do a save as or they can import pieces of it. We're going to do month and a half or so. We're going to do a templates class because there's a whole bunch to these, but I don't have a week right now. So I set all that up, and now I'm going to get click happy again. Getting rid of the old. Let's see the new. Right here is your 3D model. Turn on these have materials associated with them. You're looking at your asphalt, your tack, and your surfacing inslopes right here. This side is all fill. So these inslopes are designed the same way as criteria. They solve based on the same set of parameters, the fill height. So I'm going to put the other side of the bridge in. You do want multiple corridors if you're doing a bridge for earthwork purposes. It has a habit, earthwork and terrain, it has a habit of trying to calculate across the gap, even if there's, yes.
Do you want to maybe just show them real quickly the template and do a test on the?
Oh, the end condition?
Yeah, just so they can see that this is how it's, or what it's doing. I mean, it's essentially your full array of what are my end conditions, should they be?
This is our full array. You can see there's way more than I care to think about. What Aaron's talking about, see how everything there is kind of fuzzed out? Oh, hang on.
Just do 0.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well. All right. So you can see I'm drawing. As my cut height gets higher, you can see it changes what it's solving for. And this is straight out of our geometric design tables.
Anything outside of that is manipulated by the designer with intent. Otherwise, it's full standards.
This is what it'll give you the first time the designer drops the template.
How does it calculate it?
However often you want to drop it.
Okay, it's not, you don't have to.
I put this first one in at a 25-foot interval.
Okay.
I've gone so far as to do a 2-foot interval.
Yeah,
I don't suggest that.
I think you'd have to do a lot of cleanup. Bouncing back and forth or something.
It depends. Depends on how uneven your ground is. Why am I in my picture? Oh, never mind. All right. I'm going to put the other template. Same typical, same drop interval. Now you can see there's some yellow there. On this side, it's solving for fill. Those blue dashed lines right there, those are ditch bottom, front of ditch, back of ditch. And it does all of this on its own. I haven't given it any particular constraints. I haven't changed anything off the default template. So this would be what I would want from a designer for like AGR. Give me a plan, profile, and drop a template. Congratulations. Once you've got this, you can do a whole bunch of tweaking, which I'm not going to get into. That'll be stuff for the template. You can basically manipulate every piece of this template, and it's an extremely involved process. It's based a lot on design intent and engineering judgment. I am going to assign a super elevation, I think. Maybe I am. All right, there you go. So you're going to see right around this curve area, when I do this, you'll see it adjust. Didn't adjust much, but it did adjust around the radius. Next step after you've got the corridor is to cut the cross sections. This is in my opinion, the most different part of OpenRoads versus criteria are the cross sections. They don't work like we're used to. I go into the cross section file here. First and foremost, I have to have everything referenced in. You're seeing all of my plans. There's my alignment. You can see there's proposed right-of-way, all of the existing. There's my wetlands. What I don't have in here yet is my corridor. Oh no, I've got it in there. It does help if you turn this thing on though. So there it is. That's what corridors look like in plan view. Remember I was talking about how we get our plan graphics? There's all your plan graphics for plans production for your plan and profile. And each of these different colors, different pieces is on a different level, so I can turn off whatever I don't want to see. If I don't want to see the outline of the template, there's my construction limits, break line, edge of pavement, it's all there. What we're interested in as far as the cross sections themselves is what's showing in here. Anything we want to see in the cross section, anything we want to see in the cross sections has to be shown here. It doesn't have to be shown doesn't have to look like the ground and the pavement. It just needs to be visual in the 3D model. Last class, this did not go well. See if I can do this. The way you cut cross section is based off the alignment. It's not actually based off the corridor. I can cut cross sections on both of these corridors. If I have a detour alignment off it, it'll cut those. If I have sidewalks, side roads, it cuts them all at once. Everything is visible in that model. We have some preset preferences, courtesy of JJ. You can set up a cross-section run, which would be similar to when we put pattern lines in criteria. OpenRoads puts pattern lines in, but they're an after-the-fact thing and have nothing to do with the actual cross-section cutting itself. So this XFC allows me to save any key stations, bridge ends, my interval. Let's see how this goes. Now it's going to it creates another model outside of the default 3D, and it creates cross sections in there. I'll cross your fingers for me. We'll see how bad this one this time. Oh yeah. All right. So what I got told last time, you can see I don't have any existing ground.
Existing ground is dashed now.
I'm sorry, I don't have any proposed ground. It is.
Man, he finally catches on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want
existing
ground. All right. All right, I'm done.
Dog, I don't worry even.
Okay, we'll see if that little trick works. Now, when I run these again, it's going to create an additional model. It doesn't run them over the top. And there's my section line. All right, take two. This is when I'm really stuff saved. So I don't have to go through and do this again if I've got like 30 key stations. That looks slightly more hopeful. All right, there we go. Awesome. This is what OpenRoads cross sections look like. Notice they're a little different. Because we have separate pieces in our templates, we are going to get these lines. Because we manipulate these pieces, we can't take the lines away because that makes them one piece. I had comments originally that these lines needed to go, I can't take them out.
Yeah, just leave it.
So what do you, oh. Haha. And I just did something else wrong. All right, we're gonna run that a third time. Turn on annotation, because those little ancillary symbols are actually annotated. So by the time I get done with this, you guys should be able to do this, right? It's the 30th time I run it. Next thing is it's not real slow. Problem is that it doesn't put them on top. There we go. All right. So now that I have the darn things on, there's all my ancillary. So I don't have to set up anything extra. Those come part and parcel with it. I should have some in here somewhere. What's my other thing? There. There's power, guardrail, wetland boundary. I turn the rest of them off. You can actually have it say PTW, edge of pavement, top of slope, bottom of slope. They'll put every one of them in there if you really want to see them. Now be aware, I've run them 3 times. I have 3 models now. Layout sheets created the same way in criteria or in Geopack. The macro picks the model with the smallest number. So if my P24_2 is the model I want, I have to rename it something else, or it won't pick that one up. It'll attach all of the P24.
Can you delete it?
Yes, you can. So I could go back and I could delete these 2. So now I've only got the one. It'll pick up that one.
You see why we don't want to keep putting labels cross section?
Oh, let me up the ante on that. So if I go and I add a key station to this, criteria, it puts it at the end. This thing creates a new model, puts it in order. So now any labels you've got from wherever that key station is no longer line up. And they're not off by any kind of standard offset. So basically you would have to go in and do it again every time you have to recreate cross sections. Which is why we're really trying to get away from putting all of that text in our cross sections. We can show it other places in the plans. Now you notice that this thing didn't label. Labeling is separate in OpenRoads. We have 2 different ways to label. I'll run through both of them really quick. The first one is part of OpenRoads itself. So I set it to do offset elevation. All of these that you're seeing in here are named features that are cut in the cross sections. Most of these ones don't mean anything to me. These ones do. There's my fill limit. You notice I have east and west because I've got both corridors cut in there. So I'm just going to haphazardly select a bunch of these. Okay, not haphazardly, I can't do that.
Say before you,
Hmm?
what's going on the left side there with the hill?
This?
Yeah,
That's yeah, that's gotta be a transition daylight.
on the,
No,
yeah.
that's my begin station. So that one would have to be manipulated within the model. I'm not entirely sure what that is. I think, yeah, there's the ditch.
Transition.
It's designed to solve before the rest of the ditch.
Think of how to get from a ditch to a filter.
Yeah. And it's capable of doing those transitions. It just requires a higher level of,
You're not, you're dropping your template on some interval, and then you're cutting cross sections potentially at a different interval. So you're looking in between
That's
where you have it perfected,
25 foot.
potentially. Like, I don't know how to drop it.
wow, that's not what I wanted.
You want those to be as close to each other as possible, showing that, but it's inevitable. Right? There's going to be something in there that, like, oh, we need a cross section right here. I may or may not have a template that hit right there, or it could be in some arbitrary.
Depends what the terrain's doing. If it's pretty flat, you zoom in there, it might not be solving, but it's within a couple inches.
It's not for dirt work.
Oh, yeah, you can pull dirt work off the model anyway. Or that's what you're talking about. All right, let's try this again without failing. What I did is I just labeled the existing ground, which is why it gave a whole bunch of slopes.
You can override those slopes, is that right?
Override them how?
Like, manipulate your
Oh,
model.
within the model?
Yeah.
Yes, I thought you meant the labeling them. No, not really. Yes. There we go. All right. This is what we've got set up right now for OpenRoads cross-section. Not the way we're used to seeing it. Not real bad, but they do overlap and they're not the same. So this is one way to do it. This is my fast and furious. I'm not at a major far down. I'm not at scope of working further. Mm-hmm.
So like, this isn't our standard slopes though, right? Because we got 5-1 ditch slopes, or 5% ditch slopes.
Oh, that one should be a 20-to-1.
Yeah.
I think what's set in there is anything over 10, it flips to a ratio.
This is one thing from criteria that we can't quite get OpenRoads to do, because a 20-to-1 is 5%, but if we got any cross slopes that are 5%, we want it to say 5%, but then our ditch is gonna say 5%.
We can't call it 21.
We could, if you got 5% cross slopes, you just gotta be careful. If you don't have any 5% cross slopes, you can just either label it 21 or have it change them all this way.
I got you.
I have faith you can do the math.
Well, I failed the first time I looked at it, well, that's not 20.
Okay. All right, so that's one way. Yes, Harold?
I have a question. On these leader lines, I've seen on some cross sections, they get pretty busy with all the vertical lines.
Mm-hmm.
Is it pointing to, subgrade? Is it pointing to finished grade? Is it pointing to?
This is all finished grade.
Right. But like if you look at 16 feet right,
Yeah.
see how that line, it bleeds in and that leader is the same.
And you're just proving my point why this is my quick and dirty. This is not
Okay.
my final cross section.
Okay.
This is a work in progress. I don't know what kind of plans JJ and ESS have for it, but it does work. It gets the point across for a milestone review, some of the first ones. Now, the way that I like it, let me get these off of here. Maybe. And this one is more labor intensive. This requires a pre-setup. Thankfully, you only have to set it up once. This one's within our road tools. It's a macro. Cross-section feature labeling.
You'll thank me later.
Let the record show that there are two are gonna be separated in this room.
He was here to talk down.
I'm talking them down right now.
Okay, if this thing doesn't crash right off the get-go, it will eventually load. Okay. You still use this annotate, but you do something different. Each of these intersections, these points on the cross-section, see that X? That's a named point that JJ has set up to be labeled. What I'm doing is I'm telling it that I want it to label these points with their point names. So it's the same. Go through this and pick everything. And this time I'm just pretty much going to pick everything. This you have to do every time and know there is no sort feature. Bentley does apparently not believe in that.
But if there's something you don't know what it is, you can use that cursor icon to pick it.
Yes, okay. So you can all see under all my crap here that it is now labeled this. Each corridor has a specific label for this point. My east corridor will say west.left_edge of pavement top. And what I've already gone and set up is called an XLP. This is a cross-section labeling setup. And I've gone in and I've set up, I want from this point to this point, I want you to label it like this. This is where I can set my ditch bottom, I want as a ratio. My cross slope, I want as a percentage. This is, like I said, labor intensive. This isn't something you want your designer doing at AGR.
So, are these like working labels or something? What's all small?
These are working labels.
Okay.
They're what the dialogue is based on.
Okay.
So, oh, don't crash, don't crash. That's what the end result of that is. So that looks quite a bit more like we're used to seeing. I can give it a right and a left. I can give it offset. I can set those horizontally, vertically. I can turn them sideways. There's even a way to cause it to set up a template so that it will label existing ground in there. This is my preferred method, but there are two. We don't have a best practice yet. You're likely going to be seeing both as we review plans. As I said earlier today, please be patient with us. Your designers and all of us, development team, managers, we're going through a big change. It's going to be rough, it's going to be messy, and it's not going to be quick. We've got a large transition period in front of us. We've got mixed projects, mixed workspaces. You're going to see things that don't look exactly like you think they should, like they always have. Cut everybody a little slack. Cut yourself a little slack. We can't make it look like it used to, and we can't make it perfect right off the get-go. This is just two different ways to show the same thing right now. Neither of them are identical to what it's always been. That's pretty much the end of my presentation. So, you guys have questions? More questions? That includes you guys on the phone. Ask away.
This is Jim in Kalispell. I have a question about what files do you do point control?
That's in the corridor.
Do that in the corridor file or the alignment file?
You're talking about creating the actual line work for the point controls?
Yeah, it's like a 3D or 2D point control for some transition or something like that you need to have the corridor follow. Do you do that in the alignment file?
If you're just doing a dumb geometry line to, say, do a manipulation on a ditch bottom, I put that in the corridor file. If it's something that warrants you going through the trouble of making an alignment, where you're trying to be more particular with it, I put it in some alignment file somewhere. If it's like the center line of an approach or But if you're just trying to tie some end slope or get some kind of, I don't know, special end condition, I'd just put it right in the corridor file.
Right in the corridor file, and the corridor kind of follows it instead of following the reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the opening one file and then doing something in it, then you got to open another file to see what you did. That, I guess, gets confusing.
And that's part of the
So I
downside.
guess it really depends on what you're doing.
Part of the downside of having everything split apart.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if it's split apart, if something goes really, really wrong, you haven't lost everything.
Right. Okay. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a judgment call. I wish I had a straight answer for you.
No, I'm used to it.
If it's something so sophisticated, if you feel like you're gonna hand off that alignment that you're point controlling to in some way, I would encourage putting it in an alignment file so you can just keep track of it and it doesn't just get lost in all the other line work for your corridor.
Okay. Something like tie-in, where you tie it into existing or something.
Yeah.
Something, anything like that, be in the alignment file, I suppose.
If you're tying to existing, I would use the EFS line work.
Right.
Without copying it, I would use it across the reference.
I mean, that would be the short circuit way. That's not a bad
Right.
idea. Like if it's shown up under his name.
Okay.
And if you need any help just getting some kind of guidance as far as that goes, feel free to contact any one of us and we can look at it very specific to your case so that, you know, you don't run into problems if you have any further questions. I'd be more than happy to help you.
That's right. We've got, Jen alluded to it, we've got a group of power users. There's 6 or 8 of us that are, I sound rather proud when I say this, but we're kind of your subject matter experts. We got Mike and Aaron, JJ, myself, Josh Dole, Matt Mogstad, Nate Walters in Missoula. These are the people that have used this program, turned it inside out, broken it every way we possibly can. If you've got questions, abstract or specific, talk to us. We can't meet up with every one of you and ask you how it's going. I'd love to. So please come to us.
Okay, sounds good.
Anybody else? All right then. Jen?
Well, thank you guys all for coming. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now you know who to reach out to when you have all sorts of questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.